The palace of Ar Nova stood like a giant golden mountain in the middle of the empire, but on that day, every hall inside shook as if the world was breaking apart. Servants ran in fear, guards covered their faces, and the sky outside turned into a burning red glow. Everyone knew what was happening. The princess was losing control again. Aerlin, daughter of the emperor, born with rare and dangerous power, was feared more than any weapon the empire ever built. When she felt strong emotions, the energy inside her exploded like a star. Entire cities had been destroyed because of her. No one went near her. No one even dared to speak loudly around her. Everyone believed she was a danger to the galaxy, a living storm trapped in human form. And in the middle of that storm, she stood alone in the great hall, her golden eyes shining like fire and the air around her cracking with heat. Most days, the palace was calm, a place of order, discipline, and silence. But when Aerlin's rage started to rise, that calmness disappeared instantly. Walls began to glow, pillars trembled, and the floor under her feet burned. Court scientists shouted instructions, but their voices shook with fear. They tried to stabilize the power core in the room to keep the palace safe, but everything was failing. The princess's power was too strong. Flames spun around her body like wild snakes, and every breath she took made the room hotter. Everyone backed away, afraid to even look into her eyes. They had seen what happened the last time she lost control. That memory kept them terrified for years. Far away from the screaming hall, a human mechanic named Eli Ward entered the palace for a simple repair job. He was not from the Empire. He had been called to fix a damaged energy reactor that no alien engineer dared to touch. He walked through silent corridors without knowing that something terrible was happening inside. As he reached the central hall, he heard the explosion of heat. He saw guards running out, shouting for everyone to escape. But when Eli asked what was happening, they only said one thing: the princess is losing control. She will destroy everything. Run while you can. Instead of running, he stepped inside. Eli had fixed ships in war zones, survived collapsing mines, and worked near unstable reactors, so danger was not new to him. But he had never seen anything like the princess. She stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by waves of fire that twisted like living creatures. Her hair rose in the heat, her eyes burned with a painful brightness, and her hands shook as if she was trying to hold back something impossible. She did not look like a monster. She looked like someone fighting herself. Eli slowly realized she was not trying to harm anyone. She was trying to stop the power from exploding. And she was losing. The court scientists tried to warn him. They shouted that no one should go near her, that her energy could burn through steel. But Eli did not listen. He noticed something they had all missed. The princess was not angry. She was scared. Her breathing was fast, her eyes were full of pain, and her whole body trembled like someone drowning inside her own powers. In that moment, he understood she needed help, not fear. The flames roared higher, cracking the marble tiles under her feet. Everyone outside the hall shouted for evacuation. The palace alarms started ringing. The emperor's elite guards rushed to lock down the area. But Eli kept walking forward. Each step felt hotter than the last. The air stung his skin, and the fire around the princess moved like it wanted to swallow him whole. Still, he did not stop. He could see her shaking, biting her lip, trying to control the storm inside her. She looked like someone asking for help without saying a word. Aerlin noticed him through the flames. For a moment, her eyes widened. No one had ever walked toward her during an outburst. No one had dared to come close. Everyone always ran. But this human, he kept coming. His calm face did not show fear. His eyes did not judge her. He simply moved closer, step by step, even as the fire threatened to burn him. When he reached just one step away from her flames, she whispered in shock, "Stay back. I cannot stop it." Eli ignored the warning. He raised his arms slowly, and the hall fell silent. The guards froze. The scientists gasped. The princess stared at him with disbelief. Eli stood there, surrounded by deadly heat, but his voice was steady when he said, "You are not alone." And then he stepped forward, straight into the fire. The fire around the princess roared like a living beast when Eli stepped inside it, but something unexpected happened the moment his arms reached toward her. The flames did not burn him. They shivered, flickered, and then weakened as if confused. Earlyn stared at him with pure disbelief. No one had ever walked into her uncontrolled power and lived. Even she did not understand why this human was still standing. The heat curled around his clothes, but it did not harm him. It felt as if her power was trying to decide what to do with him. Eli did not rush. He moved slowly, giving her time to breathe. Her hands trembled, her fingers glowing with dangerous sparks. She whispered, almost unable to believe her own voice, "You will die, step back." But Eli heard something different behind those words. He heard fear, not anger. He saw the way her chin shook, the way her eyes moved between rage and helplessness. She was fighting herself, not him. He took another step and gently placed his hand on her arm. The moment he touched her, the fire around her collapsed like a dying wave. The hall that had been shaking suddenly became still. The scientists froze. The guards lowered their weapons slowly, unsure if they were witnessing a miracle or a new danger. Earlyn's breath caught in her throat. No one had touched her since she was a child. Everyone believed her skin carried death. But this human's hand was warm, steady, and strangely comforting. Her heart raced. She felt something she had not felt in years, control. The storm inside her did not explode outward. Instead, it softened. Eli did not know about royal protocol or ancient traditions. He did something no one was allowed to do. He stepped even closer and wrapped his arms around her in a hug. A simple action, but in that moment, it was more powerful than any weapon in the Empire. Earlyn stiffened at first, shocked. The heat around her flickered weakly, then faded completely. She felt her heartbeat slow. The pressure in her chest eased. The voices in her mind, voices that always screamed with power, fell silent. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like she was drowning. Eli whispered, "It is okay. I am here." No one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever stayed long enough to understand who she was behind the fire. The court stared at the scene as if witnessing something forbidden. Emotional energy moved through the hall, not violent or dangerous, but calm and warm. The fire that once threatened to destroy the palace now glowed like soft light around them. Earlyn's breathing became normal. Her hands relaxed. She did not know whether she was calming herself, or whether Eli's steady presence was doing it for her. Then, something even stranger happened. Her power recognized him. Her energy field shifted, adjusting to his heartbeat. Instead of burning outward, it flowed inward, forming a peaceful circle around them both. Scientists whispered theories, but no one stepped closer. The princess slowly lifted her head and looked at Eli. Her voice was soft, almost fragile, as she asked, "Why are you not afraid of me?" He looked into her eyes and replied with simple honesty, "Because you are not the monster they think you are. You are hurting." Her lips trembled, and for a moment, she almost cried. She had not cried in years. Tears were dangerous for her, they triggered bursts of power. But somehow, standing in his arms, she felt safe enough to let her emotions rise without destroying anything around her. That safety shocked her more than the flames. The hall remained silent, but the tension grew. The guards exchanged uncertain looks. The chief scientist whispered urgently, "This human must be removed. His influence is unpredictable." But no one dared to interrupt. They were witnessing something that went against everything they believed. A human mechanic was calming the most dangerous being in the galaxy with nothing but a hug. Earlyn slowly pulled back enough to see his face clearly. The glow in her eyes softened from blazing gold to gentle amber. She whispered, "If you stay near me, they will blame you." Eli shrugged lightly. "I fix things. Maybe I can help fix this too." Her emotions surged again, not rage, but something warmer, something frightening in a different way. No one had ever chosen her. No one had ever stood beside her willingly. She felt her power pulse softly, almost shy, responding to Eli in ways she could not explain. But before she could say anything more, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. The guards formed a circle, their armor shining. And at the front stood the Emperor himself, eyes wide as he saw the impossible scene, his deadly daughter in the arms of a fragile human. The Emperor's voice was sharp. "Step away from her." The moment shattered the calm. The hall froze again. And Eli knew everything was about to change. The Emperor's voice rolled through the hall like thunder, forcing every guard to stand straighter and every advisor to hold their breath. Earlyn flinched the moment she heard him, the calm that Eli had given her trembling under the pressure of royal authority. The warmth between them faded into cold silence. Eli slowly released her, but he did not step back in fear. He stayed exactly where he stood, as if her presence was not a danger, but a responsibility he had willingly taken. The Emperor's eyes were fixed on him, sharp and full of mistrust, like a blade ready to cut. Guards rushed forward instantly, forming a wall between the princess and the mechanic. Their weapons glowed with energy, pointed directly at Eli. Even though the fire inside Earlyn had disappeared, the room still carried the smell of burned air and fear. The court officials whispered in shock. They had seen her lose control many times, but never had they seen her power calm so quickly. And never had they seen someone touch her without being reduced to ash. To them, this was unnatural. Dangerous. Wrong. Earlyn's voice was still soft from the fading storm, but she stepped forward before anyone could drag Eli away. "Do not touch him," she said sharply. The guards froze. Her tone was not loud, but it carried more power than the flames she once released. The Emperor narrowed his eyes at her reaction. His daughter rarely showed attachment to anyone. She lived alone, worked alone, suffered alone. But this human had changed everything in one moment. The High Council arrived soon after, dressed in long silver robes that shimmered like glass. They bowed to the Emperor and immediately began whispering among themselves. The chief elder finally stepped forward and pointed at Eli. "Your Majesty, we cannot allow this." The human interfered with the princess's energy state. He could be manipulating her. He must be removed from the palace immediately. Or, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Or executed for security reasons. Eli's jaw tightened, but he did not speak. He knew this reaction was coming. Empires feared what they did not understand. And Earlyn's calmness, caused by a simple human touch, was something they understood even less. Earlyn turned toward the council, her hands trembling with the same power she had just managed to control. But this time the fire did not rise. She spoke with steady anger in her voice. "He saved your palace. He stopped my outbreak. None of you could do it. Do not pretend he is the danger." The hall erupted with shocked murmurs. She had never defended anyone before. The Emperor watched her carefully, his expression unreadable. He finally stepped down from the main platform and approached Eli. Up close, his presence felt heavy and strong, like standing next to a mountain made of steel. "Human," he said coldly, "do you understand what you have done today?" Eli nodded. "Yes. I helped someone who needed it." The Emperor paused. That answer was too simple, too honest. It caught him off guard. Before he could respond, Earlyn moved closer, standing protectively beside Eli. Guards reacted instantly, raising their weapons again. Her energy surged slightly, and the weapons hummed in warning. The air thickened with tension. Suddenly, the Emperor raised a hand. "Lower your weapons." The guards obeyed, though their eyes remained locked on Eli. The Emperor spoke again, voice quieter this time. "Human, your presence here has caused fear across my entire palace. You calmed a force we believed uncontrollable. That makes you either a blessing," his eyes narrowed, "or a threat." The council whispered urgently. Their fear was rising, and fear always led to dangerous decisions. Word spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants whispered in corners. Soldiers exchanged worried glances. Rumors began to take shape. The princess has bonded with a human. He controls her powers. He must be eliminated. He might be the key to stopping her forever. By sunset, the whispers grew darker. Some believed Eli was a spy. Others believed he had awakened an even stronger rage inside the princess. And a few believed something far more dangerous, that the princess was no longer under royal control. When Eli walked through the palace corridors under guard watch, he sensed the danger growing around him. Every pair of alien eyes watched him with suspicion, fear, or hatred. But what he did not expect was the quiet figure waiting for him at the end of the hall. Earlyn stood there, her eyes steady, her voice firm. "They think you changed me," she whispered. "They think you are dangerous." Eli looked into her glowing eyes. "Are you?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No. But they will try to hurt you to keep me under control." Before Eli could respond, a shadow moved on the balcony above. Someone had drawn a weapon. The first assassination attempt had begun. The first shot came silently, a thin beam of blue light cutting through the air. Eli only saw a flash before Earlyn reacted, her body moving faster than any guard could track. She grabbed his shoulder and pulled him behind her. The beam struck the wall, melting a deep hole into the marble. The guard shouted, weapons raised, but Earlyn's voice cut through the chaos like fire. "Stand down. No one touches him." The assassin ran across the balcony, but Earlyn lifted her hand. A faint golden light rippled from her palm, and the air around the attacker hardened instantly, trapping him mid-step. The guard stormed up the stairs, dragging him away. Eli stared at her in shock. She had stopped the entire attack without burning anything, without losing control. She breathed carefully, her fingers releasing the trap gently. Her power was calm. She was calm. The Emperor arrived moments later, anger in every step. "Who ordered this?" he demanded. The guards bowed low, terrified to answer. The assassin refused to speak, but everyone knew the truth. Someone in the High Council wanted Eli dead. Someone feared what he meant to the princess. Earlyn stood firmly beside Eli when the Emperor reached them. She did not hide behind protocol. She looked straight into her father's eyes. "If you cannot protect him, I will." The Emperor's expression shifted for the first time, showing something like pain, or fear. He signaled the guards to clear the hall and motioned for Eli and Earlyn to follow him. They walked through long corridors until they reached the Emperor's private chamber, a place few had ever entered. Inside, the room was quiet, lit by blue crystals and old symbols carved into the walls. The Emperor dismissed the guards, leaving only the three of them. He looked older in the dim light, tired in a way he never showed in public. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "Human. Eli Ward, you may not understand the danger you stand in." Eli replied calmly, "I understand enough." The Emperor exhaled slowly. "Then understand this as well. My daughter's power was never natural." Earlyn stiffened. Her eyes darkened with confusion. "Father, what are you saying?" The Emperor hesitated, then continued. "Before you were born, the Empire attempted to create a new kind of guardian, someone who could protect our worlds from invasion. A being with elemental force inside their body. The experiment worked, but only once." Earlyn's heart dropped. She had always believed her power was a rare gift, something inherited, something divine. But now she stood frozen as her father said the truth she never imagined. Your outbursts were not your fault. The project was flawed. Your emotions were tied to unstable energy. That is why your calmness was impossible. That is why we kept you isolated. We feared what would happen if someone triggered something we could not control. Eli looked at her quietly. Earlin's eyes filled with shock, anger, and something deeper, hurt. You hid this from me, she whispered. All these years, you made me think I was a danger, a monster. The Emperor closed his eyes. Because the truth was worse. You were a weapon we could not fully understand. Earlin stepped back, pain twisting her features, but the fire did not rise. She clenched her fists, breathing in sharply. For the first time, Eli saw the power inside her changing shape, not exploding outward, but folding inward like a storm learning to sleep. The Emperor looked at Eli next. And that is why you are dangerous, human. You changed the energy inside her. You calmed what we believed eternal. Her power reacts to you. That makes you a threat to our control, and a threat to those who want to use her. Eli swallowed, feeling the weight of the truth. So, what happens now? You cannot hide her forever. You cannot kill me. The Emperor's voice deepened. No. But others will try. Today was only the first attempt. He walked toward Earlin and touched her shoulder gently. Daughter, you were never meant to be alone. But I feared losing you. If this human can help you control what we created, then I will not stop him. Earlin looked at Eli, her eyes glowing not with rage but something close to trust. You are not afraid, she asked again, voice trembling from the truth she had just learned. Eli shook his head. No. I am afraid of letting you suffer alone. Something warm moved in Earlin's chest. Something she had never felt before. But before the moment could settle, alarms suddenly exploded across the palace. The floor trembled beneath them. The Emperor turned sharply toward the window facing the sky. Huge shadows covered the horizon. Enemy warships. An invasion fleet. And their target was clear, the princess and her power. The Emperor's face went pale. They are here for her. Earlin's hand glowed with rising energy, but this time, Eli stepped forward and grabbed it gently. She looked at him, breath shaking, fear returning. Do not lose yourself, he whispered. You are not a weapon. But outside, the enemy ships opened fire, and the palace walls shook with the impact. War had come for them. The first blast struck the outer palace wall, shaking the floor under their feet. Dust rained from the ceiling as loud sirens echoed through the corridors. The Emperor rushed to the balcony, pulling the heavy curtains aside. Dozens of black warships hovered in the crimson sky, their engines roaring like hungry beasts. Blue energy cannons charged along their hulls, aimed directly at the palace. These were not simple invaders, these were the Vrakash, an enemy empire known for turning powerful beings into war tools. And Earlin, the unstable princess with unmatched energy, was their ultimate prize. Guards scrambled through the halls, shouting orders and forming defensive lines. Servants fled to underground shelters. The entire palace moved like a wounded creature trying to survive. But Earlin did not run. She stood on the balcony, staring at the approaching fleet with a mix of fear and anger twisting inside her. The energy around her skin flickered like fire attempting to break free. Eli saw her hands trembling. Her breathing quickened. The storm was returning. The Emperor turned sharply toward her. Daughter, you must not lose control. If your power explodes, but she cut him off, voice shaking. They are here because of me. They want to take me. They want to turn me into a weapon. Her golden eyes burned with pain. Father, if I let go, I will destroy them all. The Emperor's silence confirmed the truth. A single uncontrolled outburst from her could wipe out the entire enemy fleet, along with half the planet. Eli stepped beside her. "You will not lose yourself," he said softly. Earlyn shook her head. The flames inside her rose again, faster this time, reacting to her fear. "I cannot stop it, Eli. Not when I feel this much at once." Her voice cracked. "They will hurt you. They will hurt everyone. I cannot let that happen." Another blast hit the palace. The balcony cracked. The Emperor staggered back as guards rushed in to shield him. Earlyn gripped the railing, her power crackling violently. A blinding wave of heat burst from her skin, stretching toward the sky. Eli did not think. He acted. He stepped directly into the boiling aura again. The heat scorched the air, but he pushed through until he reached her. She stared at him through golden flames, eyes wide and terrified. "Eli, get away. I am losing control." He shook his head slowly. "Then lose it with me here." She gasped as he wrapped his arms around her, just like that first day in the Great Hall. The fire roared, but Eli held her tightly, grounding her. The storm inside her chest slammed against her ribs, ready to explode, but his heartbeat pressed against hers, steady, calm, human. Her breaths grew uneven. "Eli. I am scared." "I know," he whispered. "But you are not a weapon. You are someone who was never allowed to feel." Her body shook violently, her flames rising high enough to light the entire balcony. Guards fell back. The Emperor shouted orders. The enemy ships fired again. But none of it mattered. Earlyn buried her face against Eli's shoulder, gripping him like he was the only solid thing left in the world. Her power surged, then slowly began to soften. The flames around her shifted from violent to warm, wrapping around both of them like a protective cocoon. Outside, the enemy fleet paused. Their scanners detected something strange. The princess's power reading was no longer unstable. It was focused. A single glowing sphere of golden energy lifted from Earlyn's chest and expanded outward, not in destruction, but in controlled force. It spread through the sky like a rising sun. When the wave reached the warships, it did not burn them. Instead, it disabled their engines, froze their weapons, and shut down every system in a peaceful, controlled burst. The fleet fell quiet. The war ended without a single death. The palace watched in stunned silence as Earlyn finally opened her eyes. The flames were gone. Her body was calm. Her energy was under control for the first time in her life. She looked at Eli through soft amber eyes. "You gave me control," she whispered. He shook his head. "No. You always had it. You just needed someone to trust you." The Emperor stepped forward, emotion filling his face for the first time in years. "My daughter," he whispered, voice trembling, "you have changed." But Earlyn looked only at Eli. "No. We have changed." The golden aura around them faded gently. The storm had ended, because one human had hugged a princess the galaxy feared. Later, when the fleet was removed and peace was restored, the Empire spread a new story. A story that traveled across planets, across systems, across entire star routes. The princess who could destroy worlds was saved not by armies, not by science, not by fear.